I worked the night shift at that diner for almost 2 years, and even now, years later, I still have to change the channel anytime I hear a song that was playing on the radio that night. It was during the summer of 2019. I was 24 years old and living in a small town that was pretty much just a main street with a gas station, a diner where I worked, and one traffic light. Most people knew each other, or at least knew of each other. I was saving up money that year to finally move out to a bigger city, which felt a long way off when you were making minimum wage plus tips. My routine was pretty set in stone, especially on weeknights. I would finish my shift around 11:30 or midnight, clean up, count out the till, and be on my way home usually by 12:30 or so. My apartment was only about a 15-minute drive, mostly down this old stretch of county road. It was usually empty at that time of night, which I liked. I enjoyed the quiet. It was a slow evening, only a few regulars, mostly truckers passing through or the old guys from the next town over who liked to play cards in the back booth. The weather was a bit overcast, a little sticky, like it sometimes gets before a summer storm, but nothing too dramatic. I remember listening to some pop music on the little radio we had in the kitchen, just humming along as I wiped down the counter. My boss was already gone, left me to lock up as usual. He trusted me, and I had been doing it for so long it was second nature. I was pretty good about checking all the doors, making sure the windows were latched, and the cash was put away safe. It was just a small town diner. We did not have fancy security systems. Around 12:15, I finally locked the front door. The fluorescent lights hummed as I walked out, pulling the door shut behind me, feeling that satisfying click. The air outside was still and humid. I dug my keys out of my purse, walked over to my beat-up Civic, and unlocked it. The engine sputtered a bit when I started it, as it usually did, but it reliably turned over eventually. I backed out of the parking lot, turned left onto the main street, and headed out of town. The first 5 minutes of the drive were fine. I was just thinking about what I would watch on television when I got home. Maybe call my sister if she was still awake. There was a section of the road where it split, and you could either follow the main Highway 9, which wound around a bit, or take what everyone called a shortcut. It was County Road 307, usually quicker by a few minutes, but it was narrower, darker, and had more twists and turns. It was paved, but older, with trees that grew close on both sides. Most people used it during the day, but at night, with no streetlights, it could be a bit spooky. Lately, with the economy being what it was, gas prices were rough, and those few minutes saved a little bit of fuel. I usually took it. Tonight, I decided to take the shortcut. I signaled and turned onto County Road 307, feeling the familiar bumps and cracks in the asphalt. My headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the dense trees that formed a tunnel over the road. I had the radio on low, just some generic pop song, nothing too exciting. I was just cruising along, maybe going 45 or 50 miles per hour when I saw it. Up ahead, a pair of taillights glowing a dim red. They were coming into view slowly, which meant whatever car it was, they were going pretty slow. I figured it was just someone else heading home late, maybe a farmer or something. As I got closer, I saw the hazards flashing, a slow, rhythmic pulse of red light. That was odd. To have your hazards on, you are either broken down or moving really, really slow. I eased off the gas. The car was going maybe 15 miles per hour, if that. It was an older model, a dark sedan, maybe a four-door, but it was hard to tell in the dim light and through the rain streaks. The windows looked tinted, or maybe just really dirty. I stayed behind it for what felt like an eternity, probably only a minute or two, but it felt longer because I was already tired. I tried to see if it was someone I recognized or if it looked like it was having mechanical trouble. No smoke, no weird sounds I could hear over my own engine. Just those flashing hazards. I was getting annoyed. I knew this road had a few spots where you could pass, but it was tricky on account of the curves. This car was moving at a snail's pace. My tires crunched on some loose gravel as I slowed down even more. I checked my rear view, nothing behind me, so I figured, okay, I will just pass them when it is safe. I could not just sit there all night. Finally, there was a straight stretch. I checked my rear view again, still nothing. I put on my blinker, downshifted, and started to pick up speed to get around them. As I pulled alongside, my headlights illuminated the side of the car. It was really dark, almost black, and looked pretty old. I glanced over to try to see the driver, The window was down, which was a bit surprising for that time of night, especially with the air being a bit muggy. What I saw inside is what really stuck with me. It was a woman. Her face was pale, almost gray, and her eyes were wide, looking straight ahead. She looked terrified, absolutely petrified. Her hair was messy, kind of stringy, like she had not slept in days. She had a hand gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles were white. But the thing that really threw me off was her mouth. She mouthed something at me, no sound, just her lips moving. At first, I thought she was saying something like, "Are you okay?" or "Help me," something like that. But as I passed, her eyes flickered to me for just a split second and her lips formed two words very clearly: "Don't stop." Then she quickly lifted her other hand, still without taking her eyes off the road in front of her, and pointed, not at me, not at her car, but directly behind me, over my shoulder. It was a quick, sharp gesture, almost frantic. I was halfway past her car when she did that. My heart gave a little jolt. My foot, almost unconsciously, pressed down harder on the accelerator. I did not even think, I just reacted. Her words, "Don't stop," echoed in my head, and then I saw it, in my rearview mirror. When I had checked before I passed her, there was nothing. Now, maybe 100 feet back, there were two dim lights, not headlights, not really. More like just running lights, or maybe even just the faint glow from a dashboard or something. But they were there, and they were getting closer. No, they were not getting closer. They were following. The car behind me, the one that was not there before, with its headlights off. A chill ran right through me, despite the humid air. Every hair on my arm stood up. I gripped my steering wheel so hard my own knuckles turned white. My eyes darted from the rearview mirror to the road ahead, then back to the rear view. The dark shadow of a car, no distinct features, just the faint outline and those two dim lights, sometimes one, sometimes none, just enough to tell it was there, steadily keeping pace. I sped up. I pushed my Civic faster than I usually dared on that road, 60 miles per hour, then 65. My car felt like it was rattling, like it might fall apart, but every time I looked in the mirror, the shadowy car was still there. It did not have its headlights on, which made it so much harder to judge its distance, its speed. It was just a looming presence in the dark. My mind was racing. Who was that woman? Why did she say "don't stop"? And what was that car behind me? It felt like something out of a bad movie, but this was my life, my ordinary drive home. I am not the type of person who believes in ghosts or the supernatural. I am a pretty practical person. This was real. This was a car, and it was following me. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just another car, and I had somehow missed it before. Maybe the woman was just off or having a bad night and misunderstood something. But the way she looked, the way she mouthed those words with such urgency, and then the car with no headlights. It was too much of a coincidence, too much of a scary coincidence. The fear was getting pretty intense now. My heart was pounding in my chest. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. My palms were sweaty on the steering wheel. I kept looking in the rearview mirror, expecting headlights to suddenly flash on, or for it to pull up alongside me. But it remained a silent, dark shape. This stretch of road was winding. I took the turns probably too fast, my tires squealing a little each time. I had to focus on the road, but my mind kept getting pulled back to the mirror. The shadow was still there. It seemed to adapt to my speed, never losing ground, never getting closer in a sudden burst, just consistently there. I started thinking about where I could go. My apartment was still a few minutes away. If I went straight home, would it follow me to my building? Could I get inside fast enough? What if they came to my door? I pictured my small, mostly empty apartment, the flimsy lock on the door. No, I could not go home. There was a 24-hour gas station about 5 minutes further down the road, closer to the highway. It was usually pretty well lit, and there was always an attendant. That was my best bet. People, lights, safety, I committed. I would not stop until I got to that gas station. The thought of stopping, even for a second, made me physically sick. The car with the hazards, the woman, was long gone by now, presumably. My only concern was the car behind me. It felt like it was attached to me, an extension of my fear, just silently tracking me through the darkness. I kept driving, pushing my car, my eyes constantly flicking between the road and the mirror. The silence from that car was unnerving. No horn, no flashing lights, nothing to indicate its presence other than its constant silent following. It was like a predatory shadow. Finally, I saw it. The glow of the gas station lights in the distance. Never had a few neon signs look so good. My breath caught in my throat. I was going well over the speed limit now, probably 80 miles per hour on a narrow county road. It was reckless, but I just wanted to get there. As I approached the gas station, I saw another car pulling out, a pickup truck. For a split second, I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe the car behind me would get caught behind it or get spooked by the other traffic. But no, it just kept coming. I swerved into the gas station parking lot, not even bothering to signal. I drove straight to the brightest section, right next to the pumps, under the biggest, most obnoxious fluorescent lights. I slammed on the brakes, practically skidding to a halt. My heart was thumping so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. It did not turn into the gas station. It drove straight past, staying on the main road, disappearing into the darkness. It did not stop. It did not turn. It just kept going. I sat there, engine still running, hands shaking on the steering wheel, staring into the darkness where it had disappeared. I wanted to believe it was just a coincidence, that it was never following me, that it was just going in the same direction. But the way it had been perfectly paced, the completely dark headlights, the woman's warning, it all just clicked together in a terrifying way. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes, just breathing, trying to calm myself down. My whole body was trembling. I looked around the gas station. There was an attendant inside, a young guy I recognized from high school. There were a couple of cars at other pumps, normal, safe. I decided not to go inside. I was still too on edge. I should have I should have told someone, called the police. But I was so shook up, and what would I even say? A woman mouthed, "Don't stop," and then a car with no headlights followed me? It sounded insane. They would think I was making it up, or losing my mind. I carefully, slowly backed out of the gas station, turning back onto the main highway. I kept my eyes glued to my rearview mirror, constantly checking, but there was nothing there. Just the empty road, bathed in the pale glow of the streetlights that were finally starting to appear again as I got closer to the edge of the next town. The rest of the drive home was a blur of paranoia. Every set of headlights behind me made me jump. Every shadow looked like that unseen car. I drove probably a little too fast, my heart still racing, but eventually I made it back to my apartment. I practically ran inside, locking the door behind me and flipping on every light. I did not sleep at all that night. I just sat on my couch with all the lights on, staring out the window, occasionally peeking through the blinds, checking the parking lot. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, tried to pick apart every detail and find a logical explanation. Maybe the woman was just saying something else. Maybe I imagined the pointing. Maybe the other car just coincidentally had its lights off and drove past the gas station because it was going somewhere else. But deep down, I knew it felt wrong. It felt terribly, terribly wrong. I never did find out what happened to the woman in the car with the hazards, or who was in the car with no headlights. I never saw either vehicle again, or anything like them. I changed my route home after that, always taking the main highway, no more shortcuts. I even ended up moving out of that town a couple of months later. Not just because of my plan to go to a bigger city, but because the memory of that night just lingered in the air for me. It was just one night, just a few minutes of driving, but it fundamentally changed something in me. I am still a skeptical person. I still do not believe in anything spooky or supernatural. But that night, it showed me that there are some things out there, some real human threats that are silent and unseen, and they are far more terrifying. And even now, years later, every time a car approaches me from behind with its headlights off, or I find myself alone on a dark road, I feel that same cold